Women of India, delivered at the Shakespeare Club House in Pasadena, California on January 18, 1900. Swami Vivekananda. Some persons desire to ask questions about Hindu philosophy before the lecture and to question in general about India after the lecture. But the chief difficulty is I do not know what I am to lecture on. I would be very glad to lecture on any subject, either on Hindu philosophy or on anything concerning the race, its history, or its literature. If you, ladies and gentlemen, will suggest anything, I would be very glad. Questioner. I would like to ask Swami what special principle in Hindu philosophy you would have us Americans, who are a very practical people, adopt, and what that would do for us beyond what Christianity can do. Swami Vivekananda. That is very difficult for me to decide. It rests upon you. If you find anything which you think you ought to adopt and which will be helpful, you should take that. You see, I am not a missionary, and I am not going about converting people to my idea. My principle is that all such ideas are good and great, so that some of your ideas may suit some people in India, and some of our ideas may suit some people here. So ideas must be cast abroad, all over the world. Questioner. We would like to know the result of your philosophy. Has your philosophy and religion lifted your women above our women? Swami Vivekananda. You see, that is a very invidious question. I like our women and your women too. Questioner. Well, will you tell us about your women, their customs and education, and the position they hold in the family? Swami Vivekananda. Oh, yes, those things I would be very glad to tell you. So you want to know about Indian women tonight, and not philosophy and other things? The lecture. I must begin by saying that you may have to bear with me a good deal, because I belong to an order of people who never marry. So my knowledge of women in all their relations as mother, as wife, as daughter and sister must necessarily not be so complete as it may be with other men. And then India, I must remember, is a vast continent, not merely a country, and is inhabited by many different races. The nations of Europe are nearer to each other, more similar to each other than the races in India. You may get just a rough idea of it if I tell you that there are 8 different languages in all India. Different languages, not dialects, each having a literature of its own. The Hindi language alone is spoken by 100 million people, the Bengali by about 60 million, and so on. Then again, the 4 northern Indian languages differ more from the southern Indian languages than any 2 European languages from each other. They are entirely different, as much different as your language differs from the Japanese, so that you will be astonished to know when I go to southern India, unless I meet some people who can talk Sanskrit, I have to speak to them in English. Furthermore, these various races differ from each other in manners, customs, food, dress, and in their methods of thought. Then again, there is caste. Each caste has become, as it were, a separate racial element. If a man lives long enough in India, he will be able to tell from the features what caste a man belongs to. Then between castes, the manners and customs are different. And all these castes are exclusive. That is to say, they would meet socially, but they would not eat or drink together, nor intermarry. In those things, they remain separate. They would meet and be friends to each other, but there it would end. Although I have more opportunity than many other men to know women in general, from my position and my occupation as a preacher, continuously traveling from one place to another and coming in contact with all grades of society, and women, even in northern India, where they do not appear before men, in many places would break this law for religion and would come to hear us preach and talk to us. Still, it would be hazardous on my part to assert that I know everything about the women of India. So I will try to place before you the ideal. In each nation, man or woman represents an ideal consciously or unconsciously being worked out. The individual is the external expression of an ideal to be embodied. The collection of such individuals is the nation, which also represents a great ideal. Towards that it is moving. And therefore it is rightly assumed that to understand a nation you must first understand its ideal, for each nation refuses to be judged by any other standard than its own. All growth, progress, well-being, or degradation is but relative. It refers to a certain standard. and each man to be understood has to be referred to that standard of his perfection. You see this more markedly in nations. What one nation thinks good might not be so regarded by another nation. Cousin marriage is quite permissible in this country. Now in India, it is illegal. Not only so, it would be classed with the most horrible incest. Widow marriage is perfectly legitimate in this country. Among the higher castes in India, it would be the greatest degradation for a woman to marry twice. So you see, we work through such different ideas that to judge one people by the other's standard would be neither just nor practicable. Therefore, we must know what the ideal is that a nation has raised before itself. When speaking of different nations, we start with a general idea that there is one code of ethics and the same kind of ideals for all races. Practically, however, when we come to judge of others, we think what is good for us must be good for everybody. What we do is the right thing. What we do not do, of course, in others would be outrageous. I do not mean to say this as a criticism, but just to bring the truth home. When I hear Western women denounce the confining of the feet of Chinese ladies, they never seem to think of the corsets which are doing far more injury to the race. This is just one example, for you must know that cramping the feet does not do 1/1,000,000th part of the injury to the human form that the corset has done and is doing. When every organ is displaced and the spine is curved like a serpent. When measurements are taken, you can note the curvatures. I do not mean that as a criticism, but just to point out to you the situation, that as you stand aghast at women of other races, thinking that you are supreme, the very reason that they do not adopt your manners and customs shows that they also stand aghast at you. Therefore, there is some misunderstanding on both sides. There is a common platform, a common ground of understanding, a common humanity, which must be the basis of our work. We ought to find out that complete and perfect human nature, which is working only in parts, here and there. It has not been given to one man to have everything in perfection. You have a part to play, I, in my humble way, another. Here is one who plays a little part, there another. The perfection is the combination of all these parts. Just as with individuals, so with races. Each race has a part to play. Each race has one side of human nature to develop. And we have to take all these together, and possibly in the distant future, some race will arise in which all these marvelous individual race perfections attained by the different races will come together and form a new race, the like of which the world has not yet dreamed. Beyond saying that, I have no criticism to offer about anybody. I have traveled not a little in my life. I have kept my eyes open, and the more I go about, the more my mouth is closed. I have no criticism to offer. Now, the ideal woman in India is the mother first, and the mother last. The word woman calls up to the mind of the Hindu motherhood, and God is called mother. As children, every day when we are boys, we have to go early in the morning with a little cup of water and place it before the mother, and mother dips her toe into it and we drink it. In the West, the woman is wife. The idea of womanhood is concentrated there as the wife. To the ordinary man in India, the whole force of womanhood is concentrated in motherhood. In the Western home, the wife rules. In an Indian home, the mother rules. If a mother comes into a Western home, she has to be subordinate to the wife. To the wife belongs the home. A mother always lives in our homes. The wife must be subordinate to her. See all the difference of ideas. Now, I only suggest comparisons. I would state facts so that we may compare the two sides. Make this comparison. If you ask, what is an Indian woman as wife? The Indian asks, where is the American woman as mother? What is she, the all-glorious who gave me this body? What is she who kept me in her body for 9 months? Where is she who would give me 20 times her life if I had need? Where is she whose love never dies, however wicked, however vile I am? Where is she in comparison with her who goes to the divorce court the moment I treat her a little badly? O American woman, where is she? I will not find her in your country. I have not found the son who thinks mother is first. When we die, even then, we do not want our wives and our children to take her place. Our mother, we want to die with our head on her lap once more if we die before her. Where is she? Is woman a name to be coupled with the physical body only? Aye. The Hindu mind fears all those ideals which say that the flesh must cling unto the flesh. No, no, woman, thou shalt not be coupled with anything connected with the flesh. The name has been called holy once and forever. For what name is there which no lust can ever approach, no carnality ever come near, than the one word mother? That is the ideal in India. I belong to an order very much like what you have in the mendicant friars of the Catholic Church. Say, we have to go about without very much in the way of dress and beg from door to door, live thereby, preach to people when they want it, sleep where we can get a place. That way we have to follow. And the rule is that the members of this order have to call every woman mother. To every woman and little girl we have to say mother. That is the custom. Coming to the West, that old habit remained, and I would say to ladies, yes, mother, and they are horrified. I could not understand why they should be horrified. Later on, I discovered the reason, because that would mean that they are old. The ideal of womanhood in India is motherhood, that marvelous, unselfish, all-suffering, ever-forgiving mother. The wife walks behind the shadow. She must imitate the life of the mother. That is her duty. But the mother is the ideal of love. She rules the family. She possesses the family. It is the father in India who thrashes the child and spanks when there is something done by the child. And always the mother puts herself between the father and the child. You see, it is just the opposite here. It has become the mother's business to spank the children in this country, and poor father comes in between. You see, ideals are different. I do not mean this as any criticism. It is all good. This what you do. But our way is what we have been taught for ages. You never hear of a mother cursing the child. She is forgiving, always forgiving. Instead of our Father in heaven, we say mother all the time. That idea and that word are ever associated in the Hindu mind with infinite love, the mother's love being the nearest approach to God's love in this mortal world of ours. Mother, O mother, be merciful. I am wicked. Many children have been wicked, but there never was a wicked mother. So says the great saint Ram Prasad. There she is, the Hindu mother. The son's wife comes in as her daughter. Just as the mother's own daughter married and went out, so her son married and brought in another daughter, and she has to fall in line under the government of the Queen of Queens, of his mother. Even I, who never married, belonging to an order that never marries, would be disgusted if my wife, supposing I had married, dared to displease my mother. I would be disgusted. Why? Do I not worship my mother? Why should not her daughter-in-law? Whom I worship, why not she? Who is she, then, that would try to ride over my head and govern my mother? She has to wait till her womanhood is fulfilled. And the one thing that fulfills womanhood, that is womanliness in woman, is motherhood. Wait till she becomes a mother, then she will have the same right. That, according to the Hindu mind, is the great mission of woman, to become a mother. But oh, how different! Oh, how different! My father and mother fasted and prayed for years and years so that I would be born. They pray for every child before it is born. Says our great lawgiver Manu, giving the definition of an Aryan. He is the Aryan who is born through prayer. Every child not born through prayer is illegitimate, according to the great lawgiver. The child must be prayed for. Those children that come with curses, that slip into the world just in a moment of inadvertence, because that could not be prevented, what can we expect of such progeny? Mothers of America, think of that. Think in the heart of your hearts. Are you ready to be women? Not any question of race or country, or that false sentiment of national pride. Who dares to be proud in this mortal life of ours, in this world of woes and miseries? What are we before this infinite force of God? But I ask you the question tonight. Do you all pray for the children to come? Are you thankful to be mothers or not? Do you think that you are sanctified by motherhood or not? Ask that of your minds. If you do not, your marriage is a lie. Your womanhood is false. Your education is superstition. And your children, if they come without prayer, will prove a curse to humanity. See the different ideals now coming before us. From motherhood comes tremendous responsibility. There is the basis. Start from that. Well, why is mother to be worshipped so much? Because our books teach that it is the prenatal influence that gives the impetus to the child for good or evil. go to 100,000 colleges, read a million books, associate with all the learned men of the world. Better off you are when born with the right stamp. You are born for good or evil. The child is a born god or a born demon. That is what the books say. Education and all these things come afterwards, are a mere bagatelle. You are what you are born. Born unhealthful, how many drugstores swallowed wholesale will keep you well all through your life? How many people of good, healthy lives were born of weak parents, were born of sickly, blood poisoned parents? How many? None. None. We come with a tremendous impetus for good or evil, born demons or born gods. Education or other things are a bagatelle. Thus say our books. Direct the prenatal influence. Why should mother be worshipped? Because she made herself pure. She underwent harsh penances sometimes to keep herself as pure as purity can be. For mind you, no woman in India thinks of giving up her body to any man. It is her own. The English, as a reform, have introduced at present what they call restitution of conjugal rights, but no Indian would take advantage of it. When a man comes in physical contact with his wife, the circumstances she controls through what prayers and through what vows. For that which brings forth the child is the holiest symbol of God Himself. It is the greatest prayer between man and wife, the prayer that is going to bring into the world another soul fraught with a tremendous power for good or for evil. Is it a joke? Is it a simple nervous satisfaction? Is it a brute enjoyment of the body? Says the Hindu, no, 1,000 times no. But then, following that, there comes in another idea. The idea we started with was that the ideal is the love for the mother, herself all suffering, all forbearing. The worship that is accorded to the mother has its fountainhead there. She was a saint to bring me into the world. She kept her body pure, her mind pure, her food pure, her clothes pure, her imagination pure for years, because I would be born. Because she did that, she deserves worship. And what follows? Linked with motherhood is wifehood. You Western people are individualistic. I want to do this thing because I like it. I will elbow everyone. Why? Because I like to. I want my own satisfaction, so I marry this woman. Why? Because I like her. This woman marries me. Why? Because she likes me. There it ends. She and I are the only two persons in the whole infinite world. And I marry her and she marries me. Nobody else is injured. Nobody else responsible. Your Johns and your Janes may go into the forest and there they may live their lives. But when they have to live in society, their marriage means a tremendous amount of good or evil to us. Their children may be veritable demons burning, murdering, robbing, stealing, drinking, hideous, vile. So what is the basis of the Indian social order? It is the caste law. I am born for the caste. I live for the caste. I do not mean myself, because having joined an order, we are outside. I mean those that live in civil society. Born in the caste, the whole life must be lived according to caste regulation. In other words, in the present-day language of your country, the Western man is born individualistic, while the Hindu is socialistic, entirely socialistic. Now then, the books say, if I allow you freedom to go about and marry any woman you like, and the woman to marry any man she likes, what happens? You fall in love. The father of the woman was perchance a lunatic or a consumptive. The girl falls in love with the face of a man whose father was a roaring drunkard. What says the law then? The law lays down that all these marriages would be illegal. The children of drunkards, consumptives, lunatics, etc. shall not be married. The deformed, hump-backed, crazy, idiotic, no marriage for them, absolutely none, says the law. But the Mohammedan comes from Arabia and he has his own Arabian law. So the Arabian desert law has been forced upon us. The Englishman comes with his law. He forces it upon us, so far as he can. We are conquered. He says, tomorrow I will marry your sister. What can we do? Our law says, those that are born of the same family, though 100 degrees distant, must not marry. That is illegitimate. It would deteriorate or make the race sterile. That must not be, and there it stops. So I have no voice in my marriage, nor my sister. It is the caste that determines all that. We are married sometimes when children. Why? Because the caste says, if they have to be married anyway without their consent, it is better that they are married very early, before they have developed this love. If they are allowed to grow up apart, the boy may like some other girl, and the girl some other boy, and then something evil will happen. And so, says the caste, stop it there. I do not care whether my sister is deformed, or good looking, or bad looking. She is my sister, and that is enough. He is my brother, and that is all I need to know. So they will love each other. You may say, oh, they'll lose a great deal of enjoyment. Those exquisite emotions of a man falling in love with a woman and a woman falling in love with a man. This is a sort of tame thing, loving each other like brothers and sisters, as though they have to. So be it. But the Hindu says, we are socialistic. For the sake of one man's or woman's exquisite pleasure, we do not want to load misery on hundreds of others. There they are, married. The wife comes home with her husband. That is called the second marriage. Marriage at an early age is considered the first marriage, and they grow up separately with women and with their parents. When they are grown, there is a second ceremony performed, called a second marriage, and then they live together, but under the same roof with his mother and father. When she becomes a mother, she takes her place in turn as queen of the family group. Now comes another peculiar Indian institution. I have just told you that in the first 2 or 3 castes, the widows are not allowed to marry. They cannot, even if they would. Of course, it is a hardship on many. There is no denying that not all the widows like it very much, because non-marrying entails upon them the life of a student. That is to say, a student must not eat meat or fish, nor drink wine, nor dress except in white clothes, and so on. There are many regulations. We are a nation of monks, always making penance, and we like it. Now you see, a woman never drinks wine or eats meat. It was a hardship on us when we were students, but not on the girls. Our women would feel degraded at the idea of eating meat. Men eat meat sometimes in some castes, women never. Still, not being allowed to marry must be a hardship to many, I'm sure of that. But we must go back to the idea. They are intensely socialistic. In the higher castes of every country, you will find the statistics show that the number of women is always much larger than the number of men. Why? Because in the higher castes, for generation after generation, the women lead an easy life. They neither toil nor spin, yet Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of them. And the poor boys, they die like flies. The girl has a cat's 9 lives, they say in India. You will read in the statistics that they outnumber the boys in a very short time, except now when they are taking to work quite as hard as the boys. The number of girls in the higher castes is much larger than in the lower. Conditions are quite opposite in the lower castes. There they all work hard. Women a little harder sometimes because they have to do the domestic work. But mind you, I never would have thought of that, but one of your American travelers, Mark Twain, writes this about India. In spite of all that Western critics have said of Hindu customs, I never saw a woman harnessed to a plough with a cow or to a cart with a dog, as is done in some European countries. I saw no woman or girl at work in the fields in India. On both sides and ahead of the railway train, brown-bodied naked men and boys are ploughing in the fields, but not a woman. In these 2 hours, I have not seen a woman or a girl working in the fields. In India, even the lowest caste never does any hard work. They generally have an easy lot compared to the same class in other nations. And as to ploughing, they never do it. Now there you are. Among the lower classes, the number of men is larger than the number of women. And what would you naturally expect? A woman gets more chances of marriage, the number of men being larger. Relative to such questions as to widows not marrying, among the first 2 castes, the number of women is disproportionately large, and here is a dilemma. Either you have a non-marriageable widow problem and misery, or the non-husband getting young lady problem. To face the widow problem or the old maid problem, there you are, either of the 2. Now go back again to the idea that the Indian mind is socialistic. It says, now look here, we take the widow problem as the lesser one. Why? Because they have had their chance. They have been married. If they have lost their chance, at any rate they have had one. Sit down, be quiet, and consider these poor girls. They have not had one chance of marriage. Lord bless you. I remember once in Oxford Street, it was after 10 o'clock, and all those ladies coming there, hundreds and thousands of them shopping. And some man, an American, looks around and he says, "My lord, How many of them will ever get husbands, I wonder? So the Indian mind said to the widows, "Well, you have had your chance, and now we are very, very sorry that such mishaps have come to you, but we cannot help it. Others are waiting." Then religion comes into the question. The Hindu religion comes in as a comfort. For mind you, our religion teaches that marriage is something bad, it is only for the weak. The very spiritual man or woman would not marry at all. So the religious woman says, "Well, the Lord has given me a better chance. What is the use of marrying? Thank God, worship God. What is the use of my loving man?" Of course, all of them cannot put their mind on God. Some find it simply impossible. They have to suffer. But the other poor people, they should not suffer for them. Now I leave this to your judgment, but that is their idea in India. Next we come to woman as daughter. The great difficulty in the Indian household is the daughter. The daughter and caste combined ruin the poor Hindu because you see, she must marry in the same caste and even inside the caste exactly in the same order. And so the poor man sometimes has to make himself a beggar to get his daughter married. The father of the boy demands a very high price for his son, and this poor man sometimes has to sell everything just to get a husband for his daughter. The great difficulty of the Hindu's life is the daughter. And curiously enough, the word daughter in Sanskrit is duhita. The real derivation is that in ancient times, the daughter of the family was accustomed to milk the cows, and so the word duhita comes from duh, to milk, and the word daughter really means a milkmaid. Later on, they found a new meaning to that word duhita, the milkmaid. She who milks away all the milk of the family. That is the second meaning. These are the different relations held by our Indian women. As I have told you, the mother is the greatest in position, the wife is next, and the daughter comes after them. It is a most intricate and complicated series of gradation. No foreigner can understand it, even if he lives there for years. For instance, we have 3 forms of the personal pronoun. They are a sort of verbs in our language. One is very respectful, one is middling, and the lowest is just like thou and thee. To children and servants, the last is addressed. The middling one is used with equals. You see, these are to be applied in all the intricate relations of life. For example, to my elder sister, I always throughout my life use the pronoun apani, but she never does in speaking to me. She says tumi to me. She should not even by mistake say apani to me, because that would mean a curse. Love, the love toward those that are superior, should always be expressed in that form of language. That is the custom. Similarly, I would never dare address my elder sister or elder brother, much less my mother or father, as tu or tum or tumi. As to calling our mother and father by name, why, we would never do that. Before I knew the customs of this country, I received such a shock when the son, in a very refined family, got up and called the mother by name. However, I got used to that. That is the custom of the country. But with us, we never pronounce the name of our parents when they are present. It is always in the third person plural, even before them. Thus, we see the most complicated meshwork in the social life of our men and our women and in our degree of relationship. We do not speak to our wives before our elders. It is only when we are alone or when inferiors are present. If I were married, I would speak to my wife before my younger sister, my nephews or nieces, but not before my elder sister or parents. I cannot talk to my sisters about their husbands at all. The idea is we are a monastic race. The whole social organization has that one idea before it. Marriage is thought of as something impure, something lower. Therefore, the subject of love would never be talked of. I cannot read a novel before my sister or my brothers or my mother or even before others. I close the book. Then again, eating and drinking is all in the same category. We do not eat before superiors. Our women never eat before men, except they be the children or inferiors. The wife would die rather than, as she says, munch before her husband. Sometimes, for instance, brothers and sisters may eat together, and if I and my sister are eating and the husband comes to the door, my sister stops and the poor husband flies out. These are the customs peculiar to the country. A few of these I note in different countries also. As I never married myself, I am not perfect in all my knowledge about the wife. Mother, sisters, I know what they are, and other people's wives I saw. From that I gather what I have told you. As to education and culture, it all depends upon the man. That is to say, where the men are highly cultured, there the women are. Where the men are not, women are not. Now, from the oldest times, the primary education, according to the old Hindu customs, belongs to the village system. All the land from time immemorial was nationalized, as you say, belonged to the government. There never is any private right in land. The revenue in India comes from the land because every man holds so much land from the government. This land is held in common by a community. It may be 5, 10, 20, or 100 families. They govern the whole of the land, pay a certain amount of revenue to the government, maintain a physician, a village schoolmaster, and so on. Those of you who have read Herbert Spencer remember what he calls the monastery system of education that was tried in Europe and which in some parts proved a success. That is, there is one schoolmaster whom the village keeps. These primary schools are very rudimentary because our methods are so simple. Each boy brings a little mat, and his paper, to begin with, is palm leaves. Palm leaves first, paper is too costly. Each boy spreads his little mat and sits upon it, brings out his inkstand and his books and begins to write. A little arithmetic, some Sanskrit grammar, a little of language and accounts. These are taught in the primary school. A little book on ethics, taught by an old man, we learnt by heart, and I remember one of the lessons. For the good of a village, a man ought to give up his family. For the good of a country, he ought to give up his village. For the good of humanity, he may give up his country. For the good of the world, everything. Such verses are there in the books. We get them by heart, and they are explained by teacher and pupil. These things we learn, both boys and girls together. Later on, the education differs. The old Sanskrit universities are mainly composed of boys. The girls very rarely go up to those universities, but there are a few exceptions. In these modern days, there is a greater impetus towards higher education on the European lines, and the trend of opinion is strong towards women getting this higher education. Of course, there are some people in India who do not want it, but those who do want it carried the day. It is a strange fact that Oxford and Cambridge are close to women today. So are Harvard and Yale. But Calcutta University opened its doors to women more than 20 years ago. I remember that the year I graduated, several girls came out and graduated. The same standard, the same course, the same in everything as the boys. And they did very well indeed. And our religion does not prevent a woman being educated at all. In this way, the girl should be educated. Even thus, she should be trained. And in the old books, we find that the universities were equally resorted to by both girls and boys. But later, the education of the whole nation was neglected. What can you expect under foreign rule? The foreign conqueror is not there to do good to us. He wants his money. I studied hard for 12 years and became a graduate of Calcutta University. Now I can scarcely make $5 a month in my country. Would you believe it? It is actually a fact. So these educational institutions of foreigners are simply to get a lot of useful, practical slaves for a little money, to turn out a host of clerks, postmasters, telegraph operators, and so on. There it is. As a result, education for both boys and girls is neglected, entirely neglected. There are a great many things that should be done in that land. But you must always remember, if you will kindly excuse me and permit me to use one of your own proverbs, what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Your foreign-born ladies are always crying over the hardships of the Hindu woman and never care for the hardships of the Hindu man. They are all weeping salt tears. But who are the little girls married to? Someone, when told that they are all married to old men, asked, "And what do the young men do?" What? Are all the girls married to old men, only to old men? We are born old, perhaps all the men there. The ideal of the Indian race is freedom of the soul. This world is nothing. It is a vision, a dream. This life is one of many millions like it. The whole of this nature is Maya, is phantasm, a pest house of phantasms. That is the philosophy. Babies smile at life and think it so beautiful and good, but in a few years they will have to revert to where they began. They began life crying, and they will leave it crying. Nations in the vigor of their youth think that they can do anything and everything. We are the gods of the earth. We are the chosen people. They think that God Almighty has given them a charter to rule over all the world, to advance His plans, to do anything they like, to turn the world upside down. They have a charter to rob, murder, kill. God has given them this, and they do that because they are only babes. So empire after empire has arisen, glorious, resplendent, now vanished away, gone, nobody knows where. It may have been stupendous in its ruin. As a drop of water upon a lotus leaf tumbles about and falls in a moment, even so is this mortal life. Everywhere we turn are ruins. Where the forest stands today was once the mighty empire with huge cities. That is the dominant idea, the tone, the color of the Indian mind. We know you Western peoples have the youthful blood coursing through your veins. We know that nations, like men, have their day. Where is Greece? Where is Rome? Where that mighty Spaniard of the other day? Who knows through it all what becomes of India? Thus they are born, and thus they die. They rise and fall. The Hindu as a child knows of the Mughal invader whose cohorts no power on earth could stop, who has left in your language the terrible word Tatar. The Hindu has learnt his lesson. He does not want to prattle like the babes of today. Western people, say what you have to say. This is your day. Onward, go on, babes. Have your prattle out. This is the day of the babies, to prattle. We have learnt our lesson and are quiet. You have a little wealth today, and you look down upon us. Well, this is your day. Prattle, babes, prattle. This is the Hindu's attitude. The Lord of Lords is not to be attained by much frothy speech. The Lord of Lords is not to be attained even by the powers of the intellect. He is not gained by much power of conquest. That man who knows the secret source of things and that everything else is evanescent, unto him he, the Lord, comes, unto none else. India has learnt her lesson through ages and ages of experience. She has turned her face towards him. She has made many mistakes. Loads and loads of rubbish are heaped upon the race. Never mind, what of that? What is the clearing of rubbish, the cleaning of cities, and all that? Does that give life? Those that have fine institutions, they die. And what of institutions? Those tin plate Western institutions made in 5 days and broken on the 6th? One of these little handful nations cannot keep alive for 2 centuries together, and our institutions have stood the test of ages. Says the Hindu, yes, we have buried all the old nations of the earth and stand here to bury all the new races also, because our ideal is not this world, but the other. Just as your ideal is, so shall you be. If your ideal is mortal, if your ideal is of this earth, so shalt thou be. If your ideal is matter, matter shalt thou be. Behold, our ideal is the spirit. That alone exists. Nothing else exists. And like him, we live forever.